Hello, everyone. This is ex Bethelite 937-789-4029. Here to talk a little bit about the Bethel famine there and just food shortages at Bethel in general. And normally, you start off with morning worship, and normally the meal at morning worship is going to be somewhat like you've got your cereal, and if you're going to be working the entire day doing something physical, working with your hands, cereal is not really something that heavy that's going to carry you through the day. We would also have quiche. And, someone may ask, well, what kind of cereal? Well, we had kashi cereal, and it's not even that you can really load up on kashi cereal because I would literally be sitting there, jaws on fire, because I'm trying to chew this cereal. And I know kashi is an entire brand, but I could figure out the name of this cereal and let you guys know. But I'm chewing on this cereal, and you chew on this stuff for so long. I mean, it's the type of cereal that you can only eat so much of it before your jaws want to lock up on you. I mean, it's that hard. And other days we would have the quiche, and the quiche is like a dish of it's mostly eggs, but it's not hard. It's not like an omelet where you have eggs and you have your cheese and you may have some ham chopped up in there, maybe some tomato or some kind of vegetable chopped up in there. Quiche is almost what we had was almost like an omelet with nothing in it almost. Some kind of bread, or I don't know what kind of outer covering they had over it, but it was very thin. You cut it, you put it on your plate, pass it around, maybe have a piece of toast or something like that. And other days we would have maybe some fruit for breakfast. It's not something very heavy, very hearty, very is going to carry you through the day if you are about to do some heavy work. So normally by lunchtime, you're pretty heavy. Or I'm sorry, by lunchtime, you're pretty hungry. Because where I work, you are talking long hours in a blast freezer. What that is a freezer in the warehouse where we kept all the food, the frozen food for every single kitchen at Bethel. I'm talking Bossards, I'm talking 103 Kitchen, I'm talking Patterson Kitchen, and in addition, of course, to the kitchen there at Walkill. So this freezer is big enough that you could have forklifts driving in. And that's what we did. We had forklifts driving in to fork down the things that we needed that were on the higher levels of the racking. So you can imagine going in there and having to work the full day, or at least a half of the day up until about lunchtime. You're working in the freezer, moving around, and part of staying warm in that freezer is moving as much as possible. You're trying to stay warm, so you want to keep moving. You want to keep moving. We'd never get anything done if we had to keep coming out of the freezer to warm up. So you want to stay in there and get it all done. Now, you work up a nice appetite. Well, I go and head for lunch and change my clothes and get to my table. And the waiter comes and sits the food next to the table head, and he, lets us know which way to pass the food, and it goes around once, and you're talking a bunch of hungry Bethelites, 19, 20, 21-year-old guys that can normally put away quite a bit of food. Imagine 10 guys that are around 20, 21, been out working physical labor jobs. These take quite a bit. of food to keep going, especially at lunch when you haven't had a lot during breakfast. Okay, so the food goes around once, and normally everything, the main entree, the main dish, everything is going to be gone by the time it goes around the table once. Everybody's super hungry. So the table head takes that empty dish and sits it at the edge of the table where the waiter will come, grab the dish, and bring back a full dish. Well, the problem is that I don't know if this is the issue. I heard that this was the issue. That there was a large number of guests that showed up. So you have a large number of guests that show up, and the kitchen doesn't always know well in advance, apparently, how many people will be there at lunch. So by guests, I mean people on tour, people coming to visit their relatives or what have you, and they have them there for lunch. So just additional people on top of the Bethelites that are there. Well, the problem is that dish didn't come back once with the main entree. We sent it out, and he comes back and he says, "I'm sorry, that's all." And we all kind of look at each other, and then we turn around and we look like, "What's going on back there? What are you guys doing in the kitchen? How are we running out of food?" You know that you would think that that's kind of a common commodity there because you're dealing with a workforce. You're not paying them. So the only thing that they have to eat is what you give them to eat. Let that sink in because most of you guys work a job, you get paid, and then from there you go and get whatever it is that you want to eat. If you don't have anything to eat, well, maybe you fell on hard times or maybe you just didn't feel like going to the store. This is a situation where everyone is working. Nobody's not working and not being paid because of everyone's working, but they're not being paid. So what you have is what they give you. So when he came back and said, "I'm sorry, that's it," literally no one there at the table was going to get anything else to eat until dinner time, until the end of the day. So, for lack of better words, we're freaking starving. You know, we have finished everything on our plates. And then we sent out, you know, he sends out even the table head was noticeably upset. So he takes the dish that had the vegetable and then sets that at the end of the table. Waiter comes and grabs it, takes it off, and then he comes back and brings back a half full dish. You know, fill the dish up. But he brings back a dish that's half full, and some of the guys just ate the vegetables that were there because you had to get energy because you had to go back to work. So I'm going back to work. Needless to say, there wasn't anything really to glean that day. And by gleaning, I mean taking your Tupperware, filling it with whatever was left, and, you know, taking that and eating it later. So there wasn't anything to glean. And so I go back to work. And of course, that's the topic of discussion at work. You know, how do they run out of food? One thing about Bethel is there should always at least be plenty of food, right? So you're working, everybody's hungry. After work, you get ready for dinner. Now, lunch was your main heavy meal. Dinner, oftentimes, when you're dealing with pasta, you're dealing with salad, Your dinner, you're dealing again with something that's a little bit of a light meal, kind of like breakfast or morning worship. You're dealing with something that's not heavy, that's not hearty. So first of all, when you're thinking, oh, these Bethelites, they're eating well because they're getting breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Well, only one of those meals are really your heavy, hearty meal, and that's your lunch time, where you got your fried chicken, where you got your the good stuff on the menu. Normally, you're having that at lunch. I, I've sat down at the table at dinner plenty of times, and it's generally something pasta or salad or something like that. And that may be one of the reasons why people glean so much during lunchtime. Now, you might think, okay, well, Marcus, after work, why not just go back to your room, pop open the fridge, and grab something there to eat? Well, I don't know how it was at Brooklyn, and I don't know how it was at Patterson. But in most cases, you look at a Bethelite's refrigerator, and it is a very sad thing to behold. You have this big empty refrigerator, and oftentimes in our refrigerator, the only thing we really had in there was maybe some milk that you glean from breakfast. Get a container, put some milk in there. Maybe some cereal from breakfast, like a box of the kashi or something like that. And normally that's not even a full box of kashi. It's whatever was left at the table that other people didn't eat. And whatever you might get from your congregation, if people are cooking in your congregation and they give you something, like we were working a quick build. Poughkeepsie congregation was building their hall. We were building our hall when I was there. And at the quick build, people brought food. Well, I was getting ready to leave to head back to Walk Hill, and someone said, hey, grab some of this food here. So I grabbed a thing of food that they made and brought it back with me, and that went into the refrigerator. So basically, your refrigerator is sad. Like you don't have a lot of stuff in your refrigerator, and the commissary items, they're not giving those to you. You're purchasing those if you have money. So you end up, in a situation where the only thing, one of the things that makes it hard for you to focus and concentrate and things like that at Bethel is the situation with the food sometimes. And you're not going to be able to call home and be like, hey, you guys send me some money. Why? You're at Paradise, right? Well, because we run out of food all the time. You can't call home and tell them things that they don't want to hear. By and large, Jehovah's Witnesses in general want to hear what they want to hear. Watchtower can get every single doctrine or prediction wrong, but as long as they're talking about a paradise or, petting giraffes or something that they want to hear, they will stay put right there at Watchtower as long as they're tickling their ears and telling them what they want to hear. You can't call home and let them know about that sort of thing. So that was a specific situation there at Bethel where I don't know what happened and why they ran out of food so quickly, but they did. And it's not like, well, they're going to start cooking some more and send you something a little later to your department. No, that was it until dinner time. So, man, I remember, I'm telling you, I remember them days where you are hungry, man. You are at Bethel. You're in the house of God, and you are hungry. And don't let a Bethelite be popping some popcorn. If you got some popcorn and you popping that corn, people can smell that in the hallway. Or you may be on the phone talking to somebody and they hear you popping popcorn in the background. You ain't gonna see nothing but a streak in the hallway. They're gonna be in your room in a second. And anytime somebody had food, we had bread in our room. Some bread that somebody had brought back from their congregation, and we had some butter that you would put on the bread. And I had a friend over, and I'm not thinking anything of it. It's just sitting there on the counter. He says, "Whoa, you guys got bread?" I said, "Yeah, we brought some of that from the congregation, having a quick build." Man, he's like, "Let me get a slice." He gets a slice of that bread, spreads some butter on it, and he's sitting there eating it like it's the best thing in the world. I've already told you guys about when I had a bag of Cheetos and I shared it with the crew, and they're eating it like, they hadn't eaten in a month. Now, here's the thing. You may not have had something in a while, but it's a big difference in your reaction when you're hungry versus you're full because you're eating good. It's just certain things you haven't had in a while. So that bread that was on my counter, that wasn't, "Oh, let me get a piece." I hadn't had any bread and butter in a while. And this is pumpernickel. This is a different type of bread. I hadn't had that in a while. Let me get a little piece. It's a difference between that and being hungry and not having had certain things in a long time. The same goes with those Cheetos. There's a big difference between, man, I hadn't had Cheetos in a while. I'm full, but I'll get a couple. And somebody busting that bag open, grabbing a handful, and just, eating it like they're from a third world country somewhere. Bethelites were not taken care of as well as you think they were. And part, again, of the reason why you think they were is because people like to hear what they like to hear. They like to hear that they have the truth. They like to hear that their organization is the one and only true organization. They like to hear that the headquarters is the house of God. They like to hear those sorts of things. So even if it's blatant in their face that those things are wrong because they have kids at Bethel, they don't want to hear Jehovah's Witnesses. Boy, I tell you, just as much, if not more than anybody else, they want to hear what they want to hear. And this was a common occurrence at Bethel. One of my favorite days was Sundays, because Sundays was open bar at breakfast, and they would serve pancakes. And man, I would go down there on Sunday, and it wasn't just me. Everybody else was doing it too. And boy, I tell you, if gluttony was a sin, we all were sinning on Sundays, because we would eat so many pancakes and sausage. You would have a person come, and you can go back and get more, but the first time they would go through with their tray, you would have a stack of pancakes. And of course, on my tray, the bottom was just, not the whole tray, but the section where the pancakes were was just full of syrup. You know what I mean? I'd cut my pancakes, I'd soak it down that syrup, and I'd have like 4 layers of pancakes on that one fork, and I would, cut it and eat it, not the whole stack. But I would load up on Sunday, because Sundays you at least knew you were going to have plenty of food there. Any other day, for the most part, was questionable. as to whether you would or you wouldn't, and we were so busy at Bethel. You're coming, you're going. You got this duty, you got that duty. You're working on top of additional duties, and you got these small rooms, and you got food shortage. I mean, those aren't nice conditions. In what way do you figure this is the house of God just based off of that? The conditions are horrible. I mean, you're dealing with people here that are kids oftentimes. These are 19, 20-year-old kids that have to go through this sort of thing. We would order food to our department if we had to work beyond lunchtime, and we would have to sometimes. I can't speak for every department, but our department had to work past lunchtime. When that would happen, we would just call and order food. We would tell them how many people, and we would place the order. Well, how many times did the food come and there ain't enough for everybody? I remember you had, there was just one person that was married. You had a person that was married, and whenever he would do that, he would try to bring some back so him and his wife could sit down and at least eat together. Bring it back to his room so that him and his wife could sit down and eat together. I guess she was a housekeeper and probably was able to adjust her schedule or something to that effect. Well, there wasn't enough for us, let alone enough for him to bring food back to his wife. And sometimes that's where, working in the food warehouse came in handy, and grabbing an orange here or grabbing an apple there. You know what I mean? Because how do you have famine at Bethel? How do you have food shortage at Bethel? It doesn't make any sense unless this is not really God's house. Let me know what you guys think about that. And I kid you not, as upset as I was about being forced to leave Bethel, being laid off, being told, okay, you got to go. And then 2 days later, people coming and packing my things in boxes and you just got to go. You don't have necessarily a place to stay. As bad as all that was, when I did go over my father's house and had all the food that I wanted to eat, can you imagine it? And then when I got a job and got paid, and then would just go to the store and get as much food as I wanted to eat, you literally had the exact same result with me coming back from Bethel as you would someone from a third world country coming to America. Like, wow, I have food. Wow, I have all this space that I can sleep. Those were the things that were just amazing to me. Whoa, I can go outside and go for a walk when I want. You know what I mean? Like, I got enough time to go for a walk. We were worked to the bone, not fed well, and didn't have enough room in our rooms to have enough privacy to at least have peace of mind. Walk Hill Bethelite signing out.